Josh, I want to lose 10 pounds. Great. So let's begin with the first pound. Yes, 10 pounds will be, let's say, the North Star. It will be the target, but let's shelf it for now, because really focusing on 10 pounds is going to be pretty overwhelming because we're seeing quite far down the road. So instead, let's get our mind to think, okay, Josh, how can we get the first pound down? Because now you see the road a bit more manageable. Cool. So the first thing I want to ask you is, how busy is life? Is there much restriction in terms of you making progression towards your goal? Are you busy at work for 6 days a week, doing 16-hour days? And I ask you this because the strategy that we implement to get to the 10 pounds, but to start with the first pound, has to be congruent to where you're at now. If I was to say, hey, Jenny or Lucy or John, let's do intermittent fasting, let's do calorie counting, and I want you to walk 15 hours per day, I want you to get to the gym 7 days a week, and you're thinking, I have no time for that, then we're already off, not on a great foot, right? So there's the there's the key question to start with. What availability do you have? How much capacity do you have to work on this goal right now? So let's say you're really busy, and let's say, you don't have too much capacity, but you still want to work on this goal. Okay, well then we start on the end of change, which is achievable and small. And what I mean by that is, instead of thinking about, let's reduce 1,000 calories at once, let's think about intermittent fasting, let's do all of these things. Let's think about, okay, well, what's a simple strategy that we could apply? Okay, well, could we do something like plate swaps? So plate swaps is literally you, with each main meal, reducing the size of your plate. And this is a really good technique as an example, because you don't have to think too much about it. The plate kind of does the work for you. So this is just an example of, okay, what's an easy start? What's a simple implementation that we can start with to essentially get us to the first pound? You may be thinking, okay, plate swap sounds good. Any other options, Josh? Sure. How about sticking on the same subject of swaps? I'm going to run out of room. Food swaps. How about with your snacking in the week? Let's say you have a snack, mid-morning snack at work, mid-afternoon snack, and then a snack after dinner. How about with those foods? I'm not going to tell you to stop snacking. What we could do is replace it, swap it. Swap it for a less calorie option. For example, if at mid-afternoon you have 2 donuts, could that swap be Greek yogurt with some protein powder, for example? Donuts will be high in calories, the swap will be less in calories. So with all this in mind, this is congruent to our goal of losing body fat and is the first step to getting to the first pound. And we can do that with each snack. Again, not something you have to, I have to calorie count for a week, I have to do all of these things. It's just you thinking, okay, how about I just swap, do a food swap? So it requires less cognitive action, let's say, because you're busy and change requires energy, right? So we're thinking, how can we start meeting myself where I'm at? How can I start though, because this goal is important to me, but start in a way which I can actually be consistent with and sustain, as opposed to doing too much. With me so far? Okay, cool. So let's say you agree. Let's say, Josh, let's go for plate swaps. And by the way, there's so many different techniques, but I'm just trying to get my point across today in a short amount of time. Josh, let's do plate swaps. Brilliant. Now that will be our focus. Let's forget about everything for a second. This will be our focus for the next 1 to 3 weeks. And we don't do anything else. You're probably thinking, do you have to do a bit more to drop weight? In time, add intensity. But what do we need at the start with anything? What do we need to build in order for us to get to this, but in order for us to get to this? What do we need to build first? We need to build consistency. If we're not consistent with a practice, there won't be enough time for you to see the result. So it's pointless me saying, okay, we're going to do this, then we're going to add something else on, then we're going to add something else on. But if you weren't consistent at the start with this, adding more to your plate, it won't help, right? Because if we're not consistent with one practice, we're most likely not going to be consistent with other focuses. So here, we have one focus to get to here, but with this, our big main priority is to be consistent with that for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And that should start the journey to get the first pound off. Then what do? We focus on the next pound. Because like I said, focusing on this can be quite overwhelming. It's like looking at the top of 100 stairs. You look to the top and think, I can never do that. But if you turn your head down, looking at the first step, you're like, I could probably do that. So you're going from looking at the top of the stairs to looking at the first step, then the second step. Then over time, as you are consistent with this, we can build intensity. We can think, okay, Josh, I was really consistent. I've lost the first pound. I'm on my way to the second pound. I feel like I have a bit more capacity. Could I add another technique? Okay, cool. How about now? How about let's have a look at your breakfast, because you've told me before that, yeah, I just have breakfast out of habit. Maybe I could reduce breakfast there. Okay, well, how about we could look at some fasting? Maybe if you don't feel like you need breakfast, how about we try for 1 to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, intermittent fasting, where essentially you're going to skip breakfast and then your first meal will be around lunchtime. How about we try that to add on to the plate swaps? Or we could even substitute it, right? It's all about experiment with this. Cool, Josh. Yeah, I can try that. Let's do that. Now I'm going to throw a caveat in there. Let's say we tried this and we were trying to get to the 2 pound mark, to the 3 pound mark. And I check in a week later and say, hey, how's your fasting going? And you say, I have no energy. I'm depleted. I can't be consistent with this. Perfect. You're like, perfect? Well, that's not a technique. That's not a practice that you and I are going to work on because it doesn't fit in with your lifestyle. And that is absolutely okay. So what do? We look into the toolbox. We try and find another tool. Okay, so that didn't work, Lucy. How about we try... Let's look at your alcohol consumption. You told me you have 3, 4, 5 glasses of wine a week? Yeah, I do. Okay, how about we start here? How about instead of 5 glasses, we reduce that to 1 to 2 glasses? Can we try that? I can give that a go. It's me not restricting everything and saying, do not have any wine. It's us just thinking, okay, how can we just do a reduced version? Cool, let's implement that. 1 to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, we check in. How did that go? You say, I'm really consistent with that. And because of the less alcohol, I'm starting to reduce calories. So I've made it to a 3 pound reduction. This is working, this is brilliant. And then we go on from there. But this is how we start. I know this looks confusing. The irony of what I'm saying is simplicity. But we start in a real simple way. We start with, where are you at? What can you manage? And what are the techniques or the tools that we can implement to meet you where you're at? Not throwing 20 tools at you. It's thinking, what's one tool? What is one tool that we can implement? And then with that tool, that will get us to the first pound. Then we add intensity as we go. So for you watching, hopefully that little play acting worked. And you understand that you got to find what works for you. And you also have to just forget about the big number and focus on the little number to begin with. Because if you see that first number, like I said, it's like looking at that first step of 100 steps. You think, okay, that first step's manageable. Those 100 steps, they don't look too pretty. That's because we're focused too far ahead. But if you focus here, your brain says, I can do that. And then you feel you can attain it. It's consistency lies there. So with all that said, Find a technique which works for you. Don't focus too far ahead. Focus on the first pound. Be consistent, be adherent, be disciplined with that practice or tool that you pick for at least 2 to 3 weeks. See where you're at, and then we can add more practices and tools as we go, which fit your lifestyle. That's the key thing here. It has to work for you, not anyone else, not me, not anyone else. It has to work for you and where you're at. Meet yourself where you're at, they say. Excuse me. Meet yourself where you're at. So hopefully that's just a little start on helping you get the first pound off and just a little strategy of what you can focus on. In the comments, I will leave some tools just so you have a bit of context with practices. But for today, I'll leave it there. If you like this style of video as well, please subscribe, because then I know, okay, I'll post more of those sort of videos, and I'll get the blackboard out as well. Thanks for your time, and I hope that was helpful.